Today we have Levi Brogan here. Thank you, by the way, Brogan, for being here today. I texted this morning. I was like, baby coming? Are we good? So,
we're good.
So we're fitting this in right before. So thank you so much for being here, you guys. I know we got connected last year, and I'm really excited to have what you all have to say and share today. And enough about me. Let's get things moving, and I'll let you guys take it from here. Thank you all for being here. We got Brogan and Levi talking about redefining real estate, creative investment strategies for success. And it's all yours.
All right, sweet. Well, we're really excited to be here. So thank you, everyone. Got like a little cheering section over here. This is good support. Yeah, we're excited to be here. We want to start off also by saying, you guys, that we want this to feel like a conversation. So at any point in this presentation, please chime in. We want to talk about lived experiences, what you're going through. If you are investing yourself or if you're helping a buyer with an investment, we want to have those conversations because that's really how we learn best. So we like to keep things pretty easy. We have like literally 5 slides on our presentation. So this is much more of a conversation.
And we may or may not follow the slides.
Yeah, there's a good chance.
But they're there.
Yeah, they're there. We got them. And really our goal for today is to talk about and define your strengths, both as a human, as a real estate investor, all of that, and how you can apply those in a creative way to investment. So I think a lot of times when we hear the word investment, we think of like one person in a suit who makes millions and is just dishing out money left and right. And those people are great and they're crushing it. And like props to them. I'm not downing on them. But I think we have to flip the script a little bit about what we can do in investment and how we can look at it creatively and approach it in different ways. So that's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about what are your strengths as a human and how you can apply those. And we're going to hone in on that. We're hoping not to go into labor, so that's also a goal of today. It's just a little touch and go, but we're here.
Side hustle as a doctor?
Yeah. You guys would never forget this presentation if it happened. So.
Yeah, and we don't know if it's a boy or a girl, so you'll get to find out with us.
Yeah, it's a big announcement. Yeah. So, yeah, those are kind of our overarching goals for today, and I'll kind of pass it over to Levi to take it on from here.
Cool. So we're just going to start. One of the biggest things that we feel like is really important when it comes to real estate or anything that you do really, you know, like whatever your profession is it's about understanding what you're good at. Because all of us can walk in and it's like, if you get put in a position where you're doing what you like, what you know, what you understand, you're probably going to excel. If you're in the same situation, but you have to do things that you don't really like, you don't do them well, you're not comfortable with them, you're probably not going to excel. And that can be all within the same field. And within the same field, there's a lot of things that can make you successful. You don't have to do it the same way. There's a million ways to skin a cat, right? And it can be really, really easy when you're listening to podcasts on Big Pockets or you're reading books or you're doing any of that stuff to start to get caught up in like, oh shit, well, we don't have the money to do it like this. Or, nah, I don't do social media like that. Or I don't have the time to go to this many open houses or do this many things. And anybody can pick out like a bunch of weaknesses that you don't have or a reason why you can't get started. And so one of the biggest things that we focus on and what we're here today to kind of try to teach a little bit is within that, yes, you might have weaknesses, but more importantly, you have strengths. And there's this book called Strength-Based Leadership, and it was something that I utilize all the time when I was coaching soccer. And I used to coach in college for 10 years. And basically the idea behind it was that when they looked at all these CEOs and they went through all these people and they were looking at their leadership styles, they were trying to figure out who was the best leader? You know, what is the best leadership style? What is the best way to lead people? And what they realized was that the best way to lead people was your way. Your way is the best way to lead people. Whatever you do best, whatever makes you unique, what makes you special is the best way to show up. And if you tried to show up like somebody else, you weren't that good. If you showed up authentically, honestly, in ways that you were good at, you were probably pretty damn good. So what we want you to do is just for the start, just take 1 minute to settle in, and I just want you to think about what your biggest strengths are, okay? So take out your phone if you have a notebook or whatever to write it down on. Just write down your biggest strengths. And if it's popping up in the back of your head, like you're writing down a strength, and it's like, no, you're actually not that good at that. It's like, no, shut up, I am. Because that happens, right? Don't talk yourself out of it. Trust what you're good at, okay? So it can be anything. It can be a characteristic trait. It can be organization. It can be a skill set, a technical skill, experience that you have. Literally, it can be whatever.
We'll take like another 30 seconds to pop that on there, so you guys have a second.
It should have been more like absolutely clueless. But that's okay. Just mostly clueless.
All right, we'll come back to that, so hold on to those lists as well. You can jump in here.
Yeah, I can keep going. Okay, so.
Hi guys, come on in.
Yeah, come in, guys. We just got started, don't even worry. We're mostly just started talking about how Brogan might go into labor, so if we do, sorry. Okay, so we're just gonna go back. So this is why we think this is so important, why the strength piece comes in, is because with us, where everything began was, we didn't have any clue what we were doing. We didn't know anything about real estate. We didn't have any money. But what we did was we trusted each other. We're pretty brave. We're willing to put ourselves out there, and we're flexible. We're super flexible. We're grinders. So whatever we needed to do to kind of make things work, we were willing to do that. So what we did is we just trusted what we had, the one or two skills that we had in life, and we started to lean into those. And so what we did as our start, and when we bought our first house, we were making $70,000 combined a year.
I'll chime in too, and I remember that Levi asked me how much I had in savings at this. We got married really young, right? We're like 24 years old. And none of our family was into real estate investment whatsoever. They did the whole, we bought a home, 20% down, let's keep it forever and never pay it off. And there was no knowledge of anything real estate related. And Levi came to me and was like, what do you have in your savings? And I was like, I don't know what that is. I have about $83 to my name. And we were like, let's buy a house. So at the time, we were like, we'll just make it work. We'll hustle, we'll figure it out. We knew real estate was important, but had no idea anything from there. Mm-hmm. And we bought our first house over by DU, a little bungalow, a little 3-bed, 2-bath. And you can kind of jump in from there.
Yeah, what was 2014?
Yeah, 2014.
Yeah. So 2014, and so we bought our first place, and literally, we just bought it because we knew that we wanted to be in real estate, and so we started, and that was it. And it's pretty much as simple as that. I think that's one of the hardest things, and I know that sounds almost too easy, but one of the takeaways that we would like you guys to kind of take from this class is that if you are into investing, if you are into real estate, sometimes you just have to start. You just have to start. We've sat down now with people over the last 5 or 6 years, and they'll come to us and we'll start to talk about real estate, and they have, everything, guys. You're talking about the best Excel sheet you've ever seen in your life, all the information, everything's dialed in, and it's like, oh, well, that's incredible. How many properties do you own? And like, oh, well, none. We haven't started yet, because you almost start to outthink yourself, and you start to get too smart for your own good, and you start to freeze up, because everything has a problem. Everything has a little bit of an obstacle that you have to leap over. So for us, where I think we almost got lucky, and maybe being young was fortunate for us. Yes.
Reckless.
Yeah, it was a little bit. But we were naive and we were young, so we're like, what's the worst thing that can happen? So we jumped in.
$15 in your savings account instead of $30.
That's right, exactly. So what we did was we jumped in and we found a way to make it work. and you can't really. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about hustling?
Yeah, so some of the things that we started with this is like creative strategy number one, and we made this up as we went, right? We had 2 roommates. So we had our mortgage, we wanted someone to help us pay it. I think it was all Levi's scheme the entire time to live with his best friend and his brother, but it worked great, right? So we had this cute little bungalow, it's me, it's Levi, it's his best friend, it's his little brother, and they're each paying us rent towards our mortgage. And
Just a bachelor pad in my wife.
Yeah, it was, literally just a bachelor pad. I can vividly remember, this is like a side story, I can vividly remember one day mowing the lawn and all of them are in there playing video games, and I'm looking through the window like, what is happening here? Is anyone coming out? No one came out. But we did it, right? And I want you to think about that on your own journey. And then also if you're advising clients, is a lot of times people think that they need to fit into this perfect box and they don't. So how can we be creative, right? If people are willing to have a roommate, that's an awesome place to start. So we started there. We also started Airbnb-ing our house. Levi used to travel a lot for work. So I would pack up my dog, pack up a suitcase, and go stay at my mom's. She was like 10 minutes away. And like Friday to Sunday, I would just sleep over there. And that's a great, some of you don't have that option. And now we're like in our 30s. I probably wouldn't want to do that very often. And we have 2 kids. But at the time, that worked for us. So it was like, this is a primary residence. We're going to Airbnb this. We're going to make some extra income on the weekends. That's going to help us pay for our mortgage. So we tried to think of really creative ways. We walked dogs. We did all this stuff, right? We were on Rover. Like, we had dogs at our house left and right. And
I was driving Lyft.
He was driving Lyft.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you name it, we've tried it. And like, you know, and there's no shame in that. And I think like where we want to really hone in on is the fact that like you get started and you make it work. So don't think you need to look a certain way or have a certain amount of money saved to be an investor, right? You have to just start. So I think, you know, that's where we wanted to start off, but I think really where this is important is where it led us to next.
Can I just add one thing? The one thing I just wanted to say is the reason why I think that house is kind of important and why it is a good, like, launching pad for us is because we would never buy that house now. It doesn't fit anything of what we look at, of our model, of what we like, of when we're looking at comps or any of that stuff. It fits nothing. And we still made a little bit of money on it, and it taught us a lot of lessons, and it got us into the game. And just by that house alone, that's what got us moving. If we never bought that house, I don't know where we would be in real estate right now because it kind of set all of the wheels in motion and it started teaching us some of the lessons that we needed. Even though, like when I look back at it, it wasn't a good purchase. It wasn't the right buy. It didn't fit anything. It wasn't like, we didn't necessarily even do it well. It just worked enough that it gave us a little bit of experience and a little bit of extra cash and it got the ball rolling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you sell it?
We did. We did. And
that
we
was
regret
our
it.
first mistake.
Yeah. We actually.
Why would you bring that up?
No, this is great. We were reflecting on this and we were like, that was a big mistake. Yeah.
We were literally talking about it.
The mistake was not buying it. The mistake was
Selling
Yeah,
it.
we were literally talking about it last night, and I'm like, it still stings.
Yeah.
It still stings.
We bought that place over by DU for $395. So if you can only imagine, yes. But that's okay because we needed to, right? Yeah, move forward.
shaker. You'll find a way.
You find
That's
a way.
right.
Yep. So that is where we kind of got to this next phase of our real estate journey that we want to talk about. And a lot of you guys have heard, I think a lot of you guys have heard these terms, house hacking and BRRRR. They're thrown around all the time. And I'll explain them and I'll kind of give examples of what we did. But at the time, we really had no strategy moving forward. We knew we just needed to keep moving. So we lived in this little bungalow with our roommates for 2 years. And then we were like, all right, next step. So our next step for us was buying another primary residence, moving, selling our house, RIP, and moving into a house that was a bit bigger that could offer more potential. So it needed some renovations, which we'd never touched on. It had more square footage. We knew it was in an up-and-coming neighborhood over on South Broadway. And we're like, all right, let's do this. Let's make the leap. So this is kind of where we started this idea of primary residences and why they're such a good thing if you are willing to do what we do as crazy humans and move every 2 years, right? So we've kind of started this model of every 2 years we move, we buy a primary residence. Maybe we stay 2 years, maybe we stay 3. And that way, 2 things, we avoid capital gains taxes on it. We also have a little lower interest rate with it being our primary residence. Yeah, jump in.
So this is your second child or your third?
This is my third.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all know rearing children takes consistency.
Yep. Or does it?
2 or 5 years, switching schools, doing all that. Where's your head on
Yeah.
next 5 years?
Love it. I mean, you can jump in too. What we've kind of talked about is like, we'll do it until it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So we started this 9 years ago now and have acquired, all of the properties that we've acquired, and we'll start to slow down one day.
Yeah.
Right now we're in it. As my team knows, we are currently living out of a pod, not ready for baby whatsoever, and in between homes, and we're rolling with it. But there will be a certain point with school districts and with all of that where it doesn't work. But the beauty is because we got started, we have a lot more freedom now to do kind of what we want to do. Maybe we are just purchasing straight up investment properties.
4 or 5 years is your best law that you
Yeah.
never forget about.
Yeah.
So always keep that in your head.
Yeah, yeah,
And always keep that if you have another baby, you can sell a property
That's
Yeah.
right.
and get caught back up.
yeah.
That's right.
Can you tell them where you are with properties?
Uh,
Everybody knows what's happening right now?
Yeah, so we have purchased 10 properties total, right? We have 12 doors, so we'll talk about that in a minute, that some of them
Currently,
have...
we have 8 doors.
Currently we have 8 doors, 12 doors total, because some of them have had dual properties. We've sold some, we've rented some. And that's been over the last 9-year journey. And I think we started on this slow roll, and in the last year have really amped things up quite a bit. So yeah.
That's what's
Still sell and stay in the same neighborhood. And still call it a primary and still stay with the same school district.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, and again, that's creative, right? There are ways that you can make it work, and I think that that's like the point of it, is like, hey, one of our strengths is like kind of like not having a lot of systems in place. Like for the longest time, like
Yeah.
our kids slept on an air mattress next to us in bed, and we had no systems, and there was no bedtime, and it was pure chaos, and that would drive most people insane. But it worked for us, So we just kind of played into our strengths.
They're not going to be spoiled brats.
Yeah.
We get better second generation than most of us.
I'll add that to the slideshow.
No.
Yeah.
Please do.
Both are focused on the same goal.
Exactly, military.
You'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
And
Yeah.
that's what I think is that's the thing too, is that there is important to being consistent with kids, and there is some of those things that really, really matter, but also you can create those things within a new home. You can create consistency within a little bit of chaos if you can stay centered, you can communicate really well, you can manage your stress levels. And this is kind of, as the presentation goes, we'll talk about this a little bit, but where we think is by focusing on our strength and by kind of staying in what we do and staying in our lanes, we are able to stay more balanced. It keeps us in a place where we're not crazy stressed out and we're not freaking out all the time, because we're doing things we like, we're doing things we're comfortable with, we're doing things we know, and we trust it. And so then it takes up less space in your brain, which gives us space and time for one another, and then gives us space and time as a family. And I think that everybody, like where we want to talk about today, it's something that's really important, is that we're not up here telling anybody, hey, come do it like us. It's exactly the opposite. We're telling you, no, do it like you. Do you. That's what's going to make you successful. If you want to do it like Brogan and I, good luck. You're not Brogan and I. It's probably not going to work out for you. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to do way better, way more, whatever that means to you, but it just means you should do it in your way. You got to do it like you do it, because what works for us might not work for you. But when things do work for us, we lean into that and we trust it, even if you listen to Bigger Pockets and everybody's telling you, no, don't do it like that. Do it a different way. Or an investor is telling you do it like this. Yeah, you got to trust your intuition a little bit.
Yeah. I think that it's a perfect segue into our third property. So we lived in this property, had a baby there. That's typically the thing, is I'm usually pregnant when we're renovating a property. That's a trend that I hope to stop. But It works. The next property we acquired was, again, one, and actually our lender is here right now, and he's probably, he can chime into our...
A little shout out to Nick.
Yeah, a little shout out to Nick. But the amount of times that we call him and we're like, we have a crazy idea. Just hold on, right? So this next property was, again, it was something that was just completely not something that anyone had told us to do, advised us, and we kind of just followed our gut. We found this home over kind of in Marley, which is, if you guys, south of Barnum area, and it actually was a manufactured home. And it was like plopped in between other homes randomly. It was called a flag lot, if you can envision that. And it was this huge 5-bed, 3-bath house that nobody else was purchasing. It sat on the market forever, and this was in 2020.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, why is no one buying this, right? What's going on here? And that's something that I want like everyone with their investor caps to think about, right? They talk a lot about on all these investor podcasts is you got to go door knocking to find the best deals. You got to use wholesalers. You got to do this. Or you could just see what nobody else sees. So at this property, right, it's a manufactured home. It's this huge lot. It has 0.25 acres. And what we realized is this is where we started getting into this house hacking idea. So we actually renovated the entire thing. The renovation was quite the experience. It was our first. We dove in, we did it, full gut, everything, and we actually converted it so that it was a 4-bed, 2-bath house and then a 1-bed, 1-bath studio with an exterior entrance. So that's what house hacking is when you live in one side and rent out the other, typically is how you usually define it. And reason being somebody else is paying part of your mortgage. Hopefully you never have to see them, or if you like them, you can have them over all the time. Just depends. And so we set that up for us so that our mortgage was really low and we could kind of continue building and saving. And that house is now still a rental and it is crushing it. Like we are shocked on how well it's doing. And we set it up in a way and we designed it in a way so that the renters actually enjoyed living there. So
we cash flow, just because I hope that people feel comfortable with this, but I think numbers are important to share because it can be helpful. And so with that house, we cash flow $2,000 extra a month on our mortgage. And it's literally a house that nobody wanted, you know, because the flag lot is different. You like drive back and then you pop in. But then if you get in there and you check it out and you start to live there, it's really nice. It's kind of isolated and you have a lot of privacy. And once you're inside a manufactured home and it's not some guy who's an appraiser saying it's worth this or it's worth that, it's a home. It's exactly the same thing. And on the rental market, you know how many people care if it's manufactured or not? Zero. Zero people care.
They don't even know the difference.
They don't even know. You don't even have to list it, so it doesn't even really matter. And so this is like a way where we took a house that we bought in 2020 for
$395.
Yeah,
it's a number. It's a consistent number.
$395 in an area that like some people are afraid of and maybe don't think that they want to live over there. And guys, we crush it on our rental. I mean, the main part rents for $2,850, and then the little studio 1-bedroom place rents for $1,200 or $1,250 a month.
Yeah. So like pausing there and thinking about this idea of house hacking, right? And thinking about this idea of a primary residence. Those are two different tactics that we worked for us at the time. So again, it's not like we were like, we are only house hackers. This is the only thing we're gonna do. It was like, this house makes sense. Let's convert it. Let's create 2 rental streams of income. And I think it's something really important as you move forward with your clients right now, because it's getting really hard to buy an investment property and cash flow anything. And we'll touch on cash flow again, because it's something that to us hasn't been as important, but it's worked out. We always look at it, but there are ways to still generate that extra income with this creativity. Yeah. Yeah.
The Marley house with a studio and then the other part of the home, did you have to separate meter?
We did not. So we didn't separate meter, and we basically wrote into our lease that it's not separate metered, and we wrote into our lease terms that is like, you will come to an agreement on temperature, essentially.
I did that one.
And
One turned me in.
oh yeah.
FYI,
It depends, right? So with ours, we have a door that enters into the property. So it's separate. So we don't have to technically have 2 separate addresses there.
I don't know what Denver's rules are, but Inglewood didn't let me do it. So you had to make it a legal duplex. You need to run out the lower level, separate entrance, separate everything, except I didn't have a separate meter.
Could you enter into the main house? Did you have a door into the unit? Because ours, like a door, just they can share a door. Yeah, so ours isn't blocked off.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a little different because it's technically a mother-in-law quarters.
They told me it could have two strangers living, it could be two families on the same lease, but not two separate leases. So I've been doing that.
Yeah. And that's like what we've learned as well, right? It's like the permitting laws and all of it's always changing.
Yeah.
It's gonna keep changing. And so don't let it stop you. Instead, like get a response, get someone to come
a
to you
solution,
and find a
yeah.
solution.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've learned that along the way, especially with things like Airbnb. So if anyone's interested in Airbnb, as you know, restrictions are really tight right now. And it's changing constantly. And they also just added this year inspections on rentals in Denver. That's changed a lot. And so I think what to look at this is to think about the fact that you can keep pivoting. Don't let it stop you.
What's your name? Karen. Thank you for bringing that up because I do think that it's actually important. It is important because there are different rules. And just because you can do it in Denver doesn't mean that you can do it in Inglewood, and it doesn't mean that you can do it in Highlands Ranch, and it doesn't mean that you can do it in Thornton or whatever. So that is something to like be aware of. But I agree, like within that, where I think we found our niche and what it sounds like you've done as well is that don't let that stop you, right? There is creative solutions around that. Like what we're talking about is we're working with a property right now and we actually are going to change it to a legal duplex, but we've been kind of working with, okay, well, do we add a door and make it open so that it's technically one home and then you're renting out two separate places? And there's it just depends on what the rules are and the permitting around that. But those are things that can be worked around, you know? And that's sometimes how we find our deals is because people come up to a project and they look at a house and then it's like, oh no, well, you can't do this. Well, there's a way around it if you're creative and you're willing to do the work to find a creative solution.
Yeah.
This might be a very naive question, but one of my strengths would be research. So going on to these, or one of my weaknesses would be research.
Mm-hmm.
Going on to these websites, where are you finding this information? And do you have like a lawyer who's helping you, or is it all your own research?
It's all our own research. And like if there's anything I'm good at, it's like finding answers. So I will email 17 people in the permitting department until I get a response if I need to, right? And I think it's not being afraid of going out and looking for those answers. You know, and we.
It's on the positive and not the negative.
Yes, exactly.
And this kind of, it ties a little bit together, but this is, you have your strengths and weaknesses, right? I suck at research. Like when I run into problems like that, when we come up to a problem like that, I'm like, I just kind of sink away into the corner until she solves it. And then I come back out, I'm like, all right, we're ready to go again. You know? Glad that was handled. But the thing is that there are people who are good at that. There are people who know every single thing about the rules, the research, whatever. There's people that are doing it. There's people that are finding ways around it. And so maybe you aren't great at that. Maybe that's not your skill set to go do all that research. Maybe you don't have the time. That's where strategic partnerships come into place. It's where strategic partnerships come into place. And I think a lot of you guys are agents, like you have resources in your whatever, in your offices, you know? So there are people, there's so many resources out there, so when you hit problems like that, you don't have to feel like, oh, I have to do it all myself. Because we're gonna kind of go off, I'm gonna follow this onto a tangent. Sorry.
At least he warned you.
But I think this is important because strategic partnerships are sometimes what allows you to continue the deal on. Because where people get so intimidated by this is that you hit these moments where you don't know what to do next, or your skill set maybe doesn't fill the hole that you need to get the project complete. And then when that happens, people start freaking out. You start to panic and you start to think about all the reasons why it's not gonna work. And you start to count pennies and you start to pinch everything and you're like, oh man, well this is gonna cost me $1,000. This is gonna cost me $500, right? But nobody's getting into real estate, guys, to make $1,500. Nobody's here to make $1,500. If you wanna make $1,500, go do it somewhere else. You can get it really quick. real estate is the long game. Real estate's about building a little bit of wealth, right? Taking care of yourself and building real wealth. So don't let a $1,500 problem where you can go hire somebody to do that for you stop the ball, right? And that is something that we want to encourage you guys as well, is like that's where you do have to lean into yourself, trust your strengths and what you do, and then go lean into other people and find who can help you accomplish what you want. Because it's the same with cash flow. People get so caught up sometime on like, is this house gonna cash flow? Is this house gonna cash flow? And say it's under or whatever. Maybe this house cash flows $200 extra than this house does. Well, $200 a year is $2,400. Is that really why you're in real estate, for $2,400 a year? Or are you in real estate so that in 15 years, 30 years, you can retire and you have this big old pot of money that keeps you financially secure, you know? And the amount of times that we hear people, I mean, we get scared with it too. Finances matter to everybody, but the amount of times that people stop on deals over $1,500, $5,000 even, you know, it's kind of crazy because you get stopped on these things when you're really trying to make $500,000.
I talked to a wholesaler yesterday, and I was feeling down and out myself. It's been a rough 6 months. I probably lost $10,000 between 4 properties. Okay. But was I able to play basketball last night? Was I able to be with my kids, my family, all that? This guy said next month comes up, and I got 4 properties on MLS, and I owe $16,000. If you can make it through what we've made through in the last 6 months,
Yep.
and figure on the long game from there, who cares?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
going to be worrying about that $16,000, and 16 years from now, you're going to have $4 million.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You got to stay in the game.
Yeah.
You got to play sports.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And, do you want to go?
I think too, like to chime in on that too, you got to lean on your people, and like strategic partnerships is something we've learned more so, and we didn't understand it at first. Like I can remember when we bought our first property, and I told Levi this other night, he's like, I had no intention of that, but I was like really into Chip and Joanna Gaines at the time. And I was like, I'm gonna DIY everything, right? Like I'm gonna save all this money on this property. And I have no freaking clue what I am doing. Like we've learned, but we're not skilled laborers. That is not our strength, right? Some people are really skilled at contract work. That, what we learned, was a massive waste of time and energy and money. And so instead, let's hire the painter so that we don't get divorced trying to paint a house for the next 30 hours of our life. And we'll show up at a networking event. We'll meet new people that can support us in our village so that in these times of need, we now have a network of humans that we can lean on, as opposed to like, oh, thank God I saved that $1,500 painting that vaulted ceiling. Like, and I did a horrible job. Yeah. You know, and like sometimes you hustle, sometimes it works, but like I think owning what you need and owning where you're at and then just keep moving forward is some of the biggest piece. So I think that's something to leave here thinking about too, is thinking about where are your strategic partnerships? Like, okay, if you're bad at research, who's really good at research? Who can you talk to? Who can you lean on, right? Me, absolutely, love it. You know, I am not good with numbers. That is why I have Nick here, because I don't follow any of it, right? You know, there's someone in the audience over here who has started his investment journey and has blown me away with like spreadsheets and websites that I have never even tried to embark on. That's not my strength, okay? So, but when we start to learn from each other and pull from these resources, talk to some people in the room, like that's where you can really, really keep going in your journey. That was totally a tangent, but a good one. A good one at that. Do we have any questions so far as well?
Yeah, anybody?
Yeah.
That property you were talking about, $395, about how much did you put into it to make it rentable?
So that one, what we did, this is a perfect question too, because we did what's called BRRRR, right? So again, it's another thing that's coined by Bigger Pockets. I mean, they like run the game in investment. If you can't tell, I listen to it all the time. But it's essentially, we bought a home, we rehabbed it, we refinanced, we pulled the money out to pay for those renovations. So I think total all in, we were about at 150 for those, and we gutted it top to bottom. I mean, literally the shower drained just into the crawl space. Not into a drain, just into the crawl space. So, yeah. Yeah.
Did you get a rehab loan for that? Did you buy that one as a primary?
We did not get a rehab loan, but we have one currently with a renovation loan, which is another side tangent we can totally go on for hours about. They're super fun if you've never experienced one. Good experience, to do, but that we just did a refi and pulled the money out and paid for the renovation.
And that's where the primary residence comes in, and that's why it's so important, is because with an investment property, most people will make you put 20 or even 25% down. Some people say, like, you can say you can get 15, but I haven't found it anywhere, and we've been trying. I would love to put 15% down on an investment, but we haven't found it anywhere. What'd you say?
Portfolio loans, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
but that's why the primary residence can be so valuable, is because you can put down 3.5%, 5%, and that makes your barrier to entry far less. So on a $400,000 house, instead of having to bring $80,000 to the table just to get things moving, you're bringing $20,000 to the table, and then you can use other money to renovate. Go ahead.
Do you have other primary income besides this?
It's a great question. So, depends on the month.
We did.
We did. So for Levi coached soccer for the last 10 years
University of
at the
Denver.
University of Denver.
Yeah.
I'm a real estate agent primarily. This is my team over here, so that's my source of income, right? For a long time, it's funny. When we actually bought, and we're really vulnerable, like honest humans, so I think that's important. When we bought our second home, I was laid off. I was pregnant. He was working, and we were functioning off $56,000 collectively with a baby on the way. And we're like, let's buy another home. And so I think it's important to remember that, like, although yes, we have other income, and it ebbs and flows. It depends on the year, as you know. You can still do it.
Well, that house wasn't about, when we moved from that, so that wasn't about like, oh, let's go make a bunch more money. That was, oh, let's go make our mortgage affordable for us.
Yeah.
So we moved and we bought another house, and then we house hacked it. So we took our mortgage, and at the time we were paying, I think, $2,300 a month at one place. We moved into the new house. Our new mortgage was $1,900, and then we rented out the other piece for $1,000 a month. So then we started, so now our mortgage payment was essentially $800 a month.
So your savings start to look
for
different.
a pretty cool house. Yeah. And so honestly, at that point, it was as much out of necessity as it was because we were smart investors who knew what we were doing. We were just trying to fit into our lifestyle and figure things out and keep the ball rolling. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Or just really crazy. Yeah.
But this is all, like, it's kind of funny, but my point a little bit is it's like, I don't know, if these two lunatics can make money doing this, then anybody can, Like, it's not always that complicated. It's really not. Sometimes it's just about jumping into it and then being willing to maybe I like to use the word investment instead of sacrifice, because I think words are really powerful, and I think just that small change is important. Is instead of saying, oh, we're making all of these sacrifices, it's like, no, we're making all of these investments for our future and for our life.
Yeah. So on this journey, this trajectory, does anyone else have questions I should ask? Everyone good? Feeling good? Okay. Kind of the next thing that we discovered was we took this leap into, so we had this ADU, this was great. We started getting really into what makes a house versus a home, right? And I think if anyone works with wholesalers, flippers, right, we have this mindset of everything needs to be done systematically in a regimented way, and that didn't work for us. That didn't fill our cup. Like, for us, what we found was that focusing on strengths that filled our cup was in the long run going to keep us going in this business. But doing things like other people, like, I could not simply agree to a gray house with white subway tile. Like, I couldn't. And I listened to all these podcasts, and they were like, don't pick the bougie tile. And I was like, I'm going to pick the bougie tile because that is what worked for me. But I think what we learned along this journey, and you can jump in here, is how can we are real estate agents. We go out with our buyers, and how many of them want something special? Every single one. right? They want to feel valued, they want to feel seen. It's the same for renters. Like, renters matter too. Renters don't want to live in a dump, right? They want to feel seen, they want to feel special, they want to feel like this is their home. So what we started focusing on was, how can we create homes, and not just these houses that are like, this is the cheapest cabinet, the cheapest backsplash, the quickest way I can make money. That works for some people. It didn't land with us. And I think in the long run, it's really worked out for our return on investment, because now we have these amazing renters. We oftentimes can sell for that much more because we've taken the time to curate it. And again, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but it's something that we want to get you guys thinking about, is how can you actually think about the humans that are going to be living in these homes? You think about it when you buy a house. So how can you think about it on the investment side too? Jump in there, yeah.
I think it matters as well, because like for us, and I think a lot of people, like, again, you're in it to make money, but you're also trying to improve your lifestyle, right? So I wanted to make a little bit more money and have less stress and work less and go to bed and wake up and have a little bit more money in my bank account, you know? And by curating these houses and making them a little bit special, thinking very much so about, like, why would you want to live here? What would make this enticing to somebody? It makes your clientele for who's going to be living at your home, it gives you just a bigger pool. It gives you a bigger pool of applicants. So that now when you're taking your pool of applicants and you pick the people that are going to live inside of your house and you're going to work with, right? You can create a really good relationship with them. They're coming into the home and they're going to take better care of the home because you're taking better care of the home. They're excited about living there because they're living in a place that feels good, and they're living in a place that feels like it feels comfortable for them. It's a place they like. That gives you way less problems on the back end. You're not stressing about when this person is going to cancel their lease and move somewhere else because they're calling you every 2 weeks telling you this broken, that's broken. They didn't really like the place that much to begin with. All of those things add, like, in the background of the stress and the extra work or the extra even mental capacity that it takes up to do these things. And I think that's really important, because if you start a project and you buy a house and you flip it and it is just the most stressful, painful experience of your life, then you're probably not gonna ever do it again, you know? But if you do a project and you take it on and you enjoy it, and maybe you spend a little bit more money, say you make $25,000 on the project as opposed to $50,000 on the project, but you had a good time doing it, well, then you're gonna be inclined to do it again. So you didn't actually make $25,000 less, because, yeah, maybe in the moment you made $25,000 less, but you were never going to do it again. This time you made $25,000 less, but you're going to do it 5 more times, and you're going to make more money on it each time. So in the long run, you're making way more money, but you have to kind of look past that first little window.
Do you manage all of your rentals?
So we do now. We didn't manage we bought one home over on East Colfax, and it was actually one of our first, like, partnerships experiences. We bought it with Levi's sister. It was a straight up investment, and it was actually great. Like, it was a little 3-bed, 2-bath bungalow. We had a property manager. Everything we didn't do a single renovation. Everything went about as smooth and as, like, vanilla as it possibly could. And we had a property manager for that one. So we were young. We didn't know that I actually enjoy managing my properties. I enjoy getting to know the renters. I enjoy finding them, meeting them, hearing about what they love about the home. And at the time, I didn't know that. So it was something that we found a partnership. I think we paid all of $200 a month for that property manager, and it saved us a lot of time and stress, because at that time we didn't have that skill set. And people ask me that all the time. Should I have a property manager or should I not? And it really depends on your life and what you're good at. So again, if it's your strength to stay organized and communicate with people, and if you're okay getting a text at 11 p.m. that the pipes broke, cool. If you have 47 properties and you're like, I am not continuing this crazy communication, then hire a property manager. It's a pretty low cost. So it's just either or. They're both good options. Yeah. I'm curious, does anyone have properties in here, and do you use a property manager versus not? And how many people use property managers? Yeah. So like kind of split, it seems like. And I think it's just preference, So it's something to think about when you're looking, and you can always switch. You can always, switch it up. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Have we bought any property subject to? No, we have not. No. And it's a great question. These are like, and this is what we're learning as well, is that every single person, you just have to find your niche. So if subject to is your thing, go for it. Like, go crazy. It's not our thing. It hasn't been. And what's been working for us, we're just going to keep going. So I think that's really important too to talk about is in this investment world, we hear topics brought up all the time and we jump ship. And then we don't really get good at any of them, right? So if subject to is your thing, go for it, right? If a certain type of rental is your thing, go for it. Really hone in on what you're good at and focus on that. Yeah.
Is subject to in the real estate world different than in the lending world? Like when I hear subject to, it's because I've had an appraisal come back saying it needs this done before we can say it's.
Yes. So subject to is different. It's a different. Essentially, a seller is taking on, and I'm not even going to explain this that well, but you're taking on essentially their loan terms, and they're taking on some risk, and so a lot of times you'll take on their interest rate. They carry the loan for a long period of time. They make interest on you essentially. So you're kind of in a relationship with the seller. That's how I would describe it. If anyone wants to. Through the bank. Yeah. Lawyer drafts it up, all of that. Yeah. Have you bought one of our own listings? No. It's probably tempting. No, we have not. But yeah. So this next piece that I want to talk about here is, so this home over on, East Colfax, we ended up buying it. We had a property, we sold it, but we knew we really liked the area. So we've had another home over there that is actually a historic landmark, and it sat on the market for 100 days or something crazy. And it was just ugly. It was painted like banana yellow and had carpet up to the sky. And but it was such a cool home. It was this Victorian home over on East Colfax. And so we thought, you know what, we're going to take this and we're going to honor this Victorian roots, right? It was from the 1800s. We redesigned it. We did all of that. And the rental has been incredible. It's a home and a carriage house. It's another one of these. And our renter pool of who's applying is some of the highest level renters that I could have ever imagined. And I think that's important, right? It's because we could have just left the home as is, hoped that we got a renter in there, rented it for a low price, and we've found out that if we could create something where someone wants to stay and be there and live there, they take really good care of it. And we had an incredible renter pool of people trying to live in this home because it was different and it was unique. So don't be afraid to do things differently than what everyone else is telling you to do if that's something that you're good at.
And this is where I think we are unique, and this is something that's really worked for us. And Brogan's really good at design and loves it and is excited about it. And now that we've been doing it for a long time, I kind of enjoy it and it's fun for me as well. But it's looking at each house, just like with people, every single house has something special about it, Every house has a strength. Every single house has something unique, something cool about it, Every house has things that aren't that cool about it. But if you highlight the things that are cool, if you showcase them, if you lean into them, then you can make a house become a home. And this house on Dallas that we have, we didn't put very much money into that. So we bought that and we did kind of what we call a quick flip. There was a back house that was attached to it that we rent out as well, and that we put $20,000 into. About $20,000 in to just redo the little kitchen, do the floors, fresh paint, and then up front we probably put $20,000 in as well, just paint, aesthetic stuff. So we only put about $40,000 into that house when we bought it, and again, we cash flow about $1,700 a month on that house, And the reason is because it's cute, it's unique, it doesn't look like every other house. It's Victorian, and to be honest, I don't even really like the house. I don't want to live there. It's all closed. Yeah, it's all closed off. It's like not my style at all. I like it open so you can hang out. This is like little pocket rooms, but it's decorated well and it's cute, and somebody likes that, you know? And there are people who like that, and because we decorated it and made it look really cool, it rents for, how much do we rent that, the front?
$28.50.
We rent it for $28.50 off of East Colfax, you know, not in like the nicest area of the city, but it rents really well. The house is cool, and we've had amazing renters for the time that we've owned it. And I think that's because instead of, just like Brogan's saying, using our people and going, okay, let's put in the standard tile, the cheapest vanities, all the cheapest stuff, we're on Facebook Marketplace all the time trying to find something fun and cool and unique that makes the house pop a little bit and makes it fun and cool. So then that shows back up when you go to either rent or sell. And that little bit of love and time and energy that you put into it on the front end does come back on the back end. And if you put in all these like generic items, what we've seen a lot watching the market or seeing it, you get kind of generic results. And if you've got $2 million laying around, no problem, because then you can just run that machine and you're gonna keep making money and making money. But if you're not, and you got a hit on this house and you are trying to maximize yourself, any of the little uniqueness you can add in curation, the money comes back really almost fivefold, guys, because like normal people who aren't into real estate, they walk in and they don't have the vision. So they walk into a house and they see it and they're like, whoa, this is badass, this is sick. And it's like, yeah, that costs $100. Like that's nothing, you know? But they don't know that. They think it looks really nice and cool and bougie. So doing some of that stuff and creating the vision for people can go a really, really long ways.
Yeah. And I think too, like if you do have rental properties, and you'll know I'll like harp on this a ton, like don't be afraid to stage them for pictures. Like please, for the love of God, stage them, right? And get professional pictures. Like please don't go through with your phone and take horrible pictures, because renters care. You may, in a really hot market, you might get 100 applications, but if you want the top tier applications and top tier renters and all of that, curate something for them too. So don't be afraid to go above and beyond on that end as well, because it does matter. And I think, you know, this leads us into kind of like what we've found in our journey is what we've found we're really good at is understanding people. So we are, you know, calling it like a human-centric approach. That's what works for us. And so we try to understand the buyer, the seller, the renter. And I'm going to use one example of this, tell you guys like a little story, and then, you know, we'll kind of talk more about strengths and why this works for us. But so we purchased a property, I think 3 years ago now, and it was this really cool mid-mod home that had been like beat to death, right? It was actually next door to my parents, so like it was pretty awesome. But at the time, I have my first listing appointment with this guy. He calls me, he's next door to my parents, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go meet with him, see if he wants to sell his property, what he wants to do. And I show up, and as many of you are realtors, you know this is kind of that awkward meeting of that first meeting, you don't know them. And he is rip-roaring drunk, right? It's 12 o'clock on like a Tuesday. I'm pregnant again, a common theme. And you know, I don't know what to do, right? He has a knife. It gets really scary in the sense of he's just so drunk he can't quite handle himself. I'm by myself, no one's answering their phones. And I tell this story not to scare you, but because I came out of that appointment and I just started sobbing, right? Like I was so scared, I was afraid, I didn't know what to do. And I called Levi and I'm so angry. I'm like, I'm never talking to this guy again. Like, oh my God, that was a horrible experience. And when I took a breath and took some time from it, you know, Levi stopped and reminded me that like this is a human and he's hurting and he's damaged and he needs, you know, love and care as well, just as much as I do. And when we took a step back and we set some boundaries that were really healthy, so I only met him in public places at the time, right? And all of these things, but when I joined with a lot. And she joined. But when we were able to kind of take that like really fast-paced moving investor cap off, whatever it looked like, and say like, screw that guy, I never want to see him again, and say like, that guy is a human, and I don't know what's going on in his life. He has a lot going on right now. How can we remember that, and how can we meet him where he's at? We ended up buying this incredible house from him. Actually, we worked with him. We renovated the property. We sold it recently, and it was one of the best things we've ever done.
We made about $350,000 on that house.
Yeah, so it worked out great. Yeah, karma, you know. And I think like what we learned in that was we honed in on our strengths. And our strengths were humans, and our strengths were taking a minute to empathize. And I'm not saying that we don't come in and we don't offer low offers on properties sometimes, and you know, we don't have that cap on, but what our strength is as humans, and we've honed in on that, and it's worked out really well for us. So I think it's really important to remember that it's okay for your strength to be unique. It's okay for your strength not to be spreadsheets or not to be finding deals from wholesalers. You have to really think outside the box. That's the point of this entire presentation, right? It's okay to be creative and approach real estate investment from a creative lens and do what you do best, because it does come back around. It really does. Yeah, you can keep going. I don't know. I went on a tangent.
No.
I didn't even know where I was going with that. So something I want you to think about too is when you're looking at your strengths that you wrote down, before we leave today, I would love you guys to think about how they actually apply to real estate as well. I think it's really easy to think about our strengths as humans, which we all should do all the time, but also how do they apply? How can you think creatively about them? And if your goals are to invest in real estate, you know, what is holding you back? Like what is stopping you from taking that leap? And think about how you can apply your strengths into what's holding you back. And same thing for your clients, right? How can you encourage them to find something that they're really good at and hone in on that? Like that's what we're doing here, right? We're advocates, we're coaches, we're thought leaders, we're all of that in this field. So how can we do things differently as opposed to just fitting into this same mold and hoping that it works out for us and hoping we find happiness in that? That sounds boring as hell. So trying to do things differently and not being afraid to do that, I think is really important.
Yeah, it's like, to me, I feel that if you're having fun with it and you're enjoying what you're gonna do, then you're probably gonna keep doing it and you're gonna probably find a little bit of success, you know? And whatever success means to you is, maybe that's getting super rich, maybe that's making a little bit of money but having a lot of extra time. You know, it can be, everybody defines success or wealth or rich in different ways. But for us, like what we found is by sticking to what we do, by staying true to ourselves, by being authentic in the way that we show up in our work, we are motivated to continue working. It doesn't ever feel like it's that much work. And like one of my favorite things in the world now is that like today we're like a little nervous getting our presentation ready, and it's like, well, all I get to do is go hang out with Brogan for an hour and talk about what we do. Like what could be more fun than that, you know? And that's not like necessarily something special or a skill set, but that's just taken us in time of learning, hey, this is what we like, this is what we're into, and then putting it out there. And for us, it's work. And again, like, we're not saying do it like us. That is literally the last thing. It has nothing to do with the way we did it. The way we did it is all over the place and chaotic and like wild. And I don't necessarily recommend it for anybody, but I do recommend you doing it your way. And within that, there's a couple of things that we do that might work for you. And there might be a piece that you can grab and take away and say, yes, that is really nice, and I'm gonna add it to the way that I do things. Yeah. Because that's, I think, when you get really successful is, and where this is actually in the show Bear, which is, if you haven't seen The Bear, it's awesome. It's about cooking, but in one of the episodes, the guy's saying, he's talking about being a chef, and he's saying, the further you get along, he said that success is really, or becoming better, becomes more about being open than just continuing to do what you do. Because as you continue on, you start to get stuck into, this is how we do it, this is the way, and that is great. You want to do it your way, but then being able to be open and listen and take one element and add it into what you do can really help you evolve and really help you grow. So if you've been doing something a certain way and it's working for you, keep doing it and just find a class, find one little element from this today that you can add into the way you're already doing it. And hopefully that can help you make it easier, more efficient, more lucrative, and more fun.
Yeah?
Amen.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all she wrote.
Questions?
Yeah. We wanted to leave space for questions, conversation. Like, even if you have a deal you're working on right now, an example you want to talk to, like, this is a community of humans, like-minded humans, so bring it up. Yeah.
So can you guys touch on the BRRRR concept
Yeah.
a little bit more? Like, specifically, I think you guys did a really great job about buying, rehabbing, renting, but then like the next piece of like
Yeah.
refinancing and then how you're using that.
Yep. So, and this always is shifting based on rates and what they're doing, right? When BRRRR really took off, rates were low. So things have gotten a little trickier now, right? And you have to get creative again. But the idea is that you buy this home, maybe you buy it at a low value because it needs a lot of work. And then you put work into it. Let's say you put in $50,000. Let's say you buy it for $350,000, you put in $50,000 into it. And now by putting in that money, that remodel, the home is actually now worth $500,000. Maybe it's just both appreciation, but also, as you guys all know with real estate, upgrades are a lot more than what money you're putting in for the worth of them, right? So then you're refinancing, whether that's a HELOC, cash out refi, it depends on rates, the market, what's going on, and what works for you. Pulling that equity out of the home, and now you have this lump sum of money you just gained back, now go buy the next property. That's the concept behind it. So the concept is to keep you moving, right? Is to use the money to leverage your money and keep your properties building. So then you keep that first property as a rental. And that's the idea. We've done it, and it's worked great. And then other times, like our manufactured home is not one that we really can refinance on, because manufactured homes are really tough to get like that value there. You have to comp only to manufactured homes. So that's not one that fits that model really well. Whereas like just a straight home that you can add equity to or appreciation with the renovations, it's a little more straightforward.
So you said HELOC is an option. What was the other option?
It's just straight out cash out refi, right? And we've done multiple HELOCs, and they've been, Tab and I have talked about it a lot, they've been great for us. And they've been a way for us because we don't have these crazy incomes where we can just pull money so quickly. That's how we've continued to buy, right, is using the equity of the home. So it's another creative option.
There's two HELOCs.
Yeah.
There's an owner-occupant HELOC and a King Soopers owned investor-occupant HELOC. Or there's 3 or 4 companies that do investor HELOCs.
And that's one reason that we've done the primary residence thing, is because we've done the HELOC before we've moved out, and it's no longer our primary residence, because it's a lot easier to get HELOC when it's your primary residence. Yeah.
Rates are better.
Rates are better. Yeah.
And once you have the HELOC there, then it's there and available for you to use, you know?
Yeah.
They haven't asked for them back.
Yeah.
Have you heard for HELOCs coming back or paying them down and they give less of a credit line? So in these last couple of years, they had, because back 10 years ago, they asked for them to be doing the final payment. We're pulling them back, but I haven't heard of anybody.
Just keep moving forward until that happens. Yeah. Yeah. What other questions? What other, examples or things you have got going on? Anything else?
Can you talk a little bit about the rehab loan?
Oh, yeah. Has anyone done one? Yeah. Nick did it for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. So kind of something big, I think, and it actually kind of blew up a little bit on Instagram this year, or TikTok, was like the FHA rehab loan. But there also is a rehab loan as well, a renovation loan for conventional. So we took a deep dive into that this year as our first experience. We bought a property, and essentially we had to go through all of these loops within the property so that the renovation was rolled into the mortgage. So as part of that payment, that part of that interest rate, if you are interested, I can dive in really deep, but what you need to know about it is you need a contractor that is on board. So when you're in the process of getting a renovation loan, it sounds amazing, right? You're like, I'm buying this property for $500,000. It needs $200,000 of updates, which means it needs to appraise for $700,000. But I'm not gonna pay anything out of pocket for that renovation. It's just gonna be rolled in. Now I own a $700,000 home, right? Well, that contractor needs to do all that on the front end. They need to get approved during the underwriting process. They need to have an estimate dialed in that they follow exactly the entire time. They need to be willing to front that money because that money can't come from you. It comes from the contractor. So this is another strategic partnership thing that we've learned is that you really need someone to be on your team and on your side to get through a renovation loan. It's a lot for a contractor to take on. It hopefully will turn out great one day if we ever finish, but it is definitely something that it's worked out for us to get the property and to get going, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Would you do it again?
I would do it again, crazy enough, actually. Would you?
I would do it again.
I would do it again with the right partner. Yeah.
Right partner. I would do it again. It's worth it if you have the right person. And not that we don't have the right person. It's been a learning curve for sure, and it's still like we love the property. It's just taken us longer to get into the house than we would have liked. And if she wasn't pregnant, it wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But to be fair, as hard as it's been, and as many hoops as you've had to jump through, it's also been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's allowed us to do something that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So it is a useful tool.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a little labor intensive, research intensive, but yeah, it is useful.
And it allowed us to keep buying properties during the process because it didn't tie up all of our funds in our renovation. So it allowed us to keep moving, which was good.
Contractors, like, incentive to do that?
Not a whole lot. Yeah. It's a big job. It's typically like usually like a renovation. I mean, it's a big project, right?
That 200K at the end.
Nope, they're getting it in installments, and so they're doing it in draws. And so every single time, let's say, all right, kitchen cabinets went in today. Now we can do a kitchen cabinet draw. So they hold those costs for you, which is why a lot of contractors don't like it.
As he goes.
As he goes. It's just.
It doesn't make that seem not as contractor half up front.
Exactly. There's no deposit of money up front or anything like that. They have to wait until each little section of the job is done, so they're holding more costs.
You do have to pay for every draw, though.
Yep. But you get it allowed a certain amount of draws, so we were given 5 for our project, and you can divvy them out. And then if you want more draws, therefore, if your contractor needs more income than 5 draws, then you pay $500 is what our fee is in order to get him money faster if that's what they need. So you have to have a good working relationship with your contractor because there's a lot of pieces.
Find your own and get them approved by the lender, or would they already have approved?
Nope, they weren't approved. We went through that process in underwriting. Yeah.
I mean, he really could have a pretty awesome business model if he wanted to
Streamline it.
do this. I'm all.
Yeah.
I'm business planning for him. Let me call him.
Yeah.
I'll get him on point.
Does he use subs or does he do the work?
He uses subs, and depending on which job it is, the subs have to be also approved through the city of Wheat Ridge.
And what happened with you having to pivot with the major work that ended up happening? How do you get more money for that?
You have a contingency.
Okay.
And so you can tap into your contingency
Brogan had something come up.
structurally.
Redo some structural stuff that was like $25K.
Yeah.
So you had to get more money for that.
Yeah,
correct?
you can tap into your contingency.
Okay.
You can also shift funds around as well.
A little bit.
So like maybe you save on this tile work and then you shift those funds, but only if it's approved by the lender.
To be fair, like now that we've done a rehab loan, I think doing a second one would be easier because we understand like how the bank works a little bit and the pieces that they are willing to slide on and kind of let you go and the wiggle room they do allow you, and then the spaces where they just don't allow you any wiggle room, and it has to be like this. And an example of that is there's always, anybody who's rehabbed a house or flipped a house knows, like something always comes up. It never goes to plan. There's always certain things that change as it goes along. And so the air conditioning, we had a boiler in there. We were gonna use a boiler. And then it was like, our contractor kind of messed the boiler up. He didn't mess it up. It wasn't his fault, but whatever. The boiler gets messed up. And so we switch and we put in central, we were gonna do a boiler and then we were gonna put in little split units. we switched it. We decided to do an HVAC system with central AC and use a furnace. And so we were like, okay, well, where can we take a little bit of money? Like, the outside of the house is painted and looks cool. We were gonna paint it just because we wanted to do different colors. And we wanted it to look a little different, but we were like, you know what, don't worry about it. We'll take that money and we'll utilize it for the extra cost on the HVAC system, and we won't worry about the painting. You know, we'll just let it be. And the bank said, no, can't do that. You have to paint the outside of your house. And we were like, that's kind of crazy. Like, it didn't make any sense to us, but that's the way the loan works.
Yeah.
You know, so those are just maybe little details or an idea of what we're talking about of,
$15,000 change, right?
yeah.
Split mini units to.
Yeah, it cost us about 15 grand.
Yeah.
So that's just a, yeah, well, we had 10,000
allocated some
budgeted.
money on there.
We had 10,000
Yeah.
budgeted, and then it turned out to be 25,000. So we're on the hook for coming up with the other 15,000. So you just have to come up with that, you know. But that's like an example of how it is, and also why it's not perfect. You don't want to go into the project like, oh, they've given us $200,000 and that's the money we're going to use. And if it goes $1 over that, you're in trouble because you're probably going to have to go outside of it a little more than even your contingency, depending on the house.
Yeah.
That's been our experience in every single house that we've done. Every house that we've done, the project takes longer and it costs more than you think.
Yep.
And it's still been lucrative.
Yeah.
So
stick with it.
Are rehab loans the same as construction loans? It's just like,
So a renovation loan is part of your actual mortgage. Construction loans are different. They're more like a personal loan.
okay.
And so interest rates are different. They are, yeah, so like the construction loan's not attached to your like actual like underwriting when you're buying the home. It's more like a personal loan.
So is your rehab loan, what percent generally?
Same as our mortgage was. So at the time, 6.85 when we bought the house. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I knew that construction loans, I think, are more expensive.
They're more expensive, yeah. And so that's why we went this route, is because we were like, well, we know we want to do this project and we think it's worth it. Let's try to tie it into this lower interest rate and see where that gets us.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? All right, you guys, thanks so much for being here. This was awesome.
thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys for being here. What do you do again?
In 2 weeks. Yeah, today. We just had to make it through today.
No.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you again for
Yeah,
taking
thank
your
you.
time
Thank you for having us.
to be here,
Yeah,
you guys.
thank you.
Taking time. Thank you all for being here. We'll continue to host events, classes, workshops like this, so keep an eye out on Eventbrite. We'll keep stuff coming. Big shout out to both of you, Brogan and Levi, so thanks again.
Thank you.
And we're hanging. If you guys want to chat or have any questions, like come chat with us. Yeah.
Thank you guys.